Hey everybody, this is Jason with Modeling Pros, and today on this episode of this P-40 Warhawk by Trumpeter, I'm going to be showing you decaling. So what I want to do first is show you the tools and the items that you really need to be placing on your decals. Obviously, your plane. Your decal sheet. As you can see here, I've already cut out one of the decals that I'm going to be putting on. This will be the one that I'm showing you today, and then I'll do the rest of them off camera. Your instruction sheet that is with the kit that gives you your placement of the decals. As you can see with this one, there were two different schemes for the plane, and I chose the U.S. Army Air Corps olive drab scheme right here, as you've seen. So those are the decals that I'll be needing. I won't be needing the British ones, obviously. You'll need your decaling solutions. Now, Micro Scale Industries makes these solutions, Microset and Microsol. If you've never used decaling solutions before, start. I started working models when I was a little kid, and up until earlier this year, I did not know that such things existed. I cannot count the number of decals that I never got to stay on or had trouble getting them to stay on, decals that just did not look right. And let me tell you that these products fix that. Now, there are other manufacturers of decaling solutions. I've only used Micro Industries decaling solutions. They're fantastic. You're going to need a brush. I have a brush that I have designated just for the decaling solutions. I would recommend that you have a really good pair of scissors for cutting out your decals. You're going to want to have a pair of tweezers. You're going to want to have some Q-tips and a bowl of warm water, hot water. I make mine hot, and because it gets cold pretty quickly. You could purchase like a coffee mug warmer, and then as long as you used a bowl that didn't melt, you could just keep it on there, and it'd keep your water warm. And then you're going to want a knife here, a modeling knife with a good blade. Probably want to just go ahead and put a brand new blade on it, or one that has had very little use. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take my water and I'm going to put my decal down into the water. Now, the decals have a tendency to want to kind of curl up when you put them in there. So it's not a bad idea to put it in upside down and then just take your tweezers and press down on it so that it will not curl up on itself. Some of them do that really badly and some of them don't. You don't need to leave that sit in there for a terribly, terribly long time, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take that decal out. You know, it's been in there, what, maybe 10 seconds? I don't know. I wasn't watching the timer, but not a real long time. I'm going to take that decal out of there, and I'm going to set it here on this paper towel, and I'm just going to let it sit for a moment, okay? What I'm going to do next is I'm going to prepare the area where the decal is going to go. So first of all, I want to make sure there's no dust on there. And I'm going to take this Microset and I'm going to dip my paintbrush into the Microset, okay? And I'm going to just spread it out here where the decal ultimately is going to be. All right? Just like that. You guys, yeah, it looks like it's showing up on camera. You can tell the color's different where I've gotten it wet with the solution. Okay, so just get that on there real good. I'm not done with the set, so I'm just setting it aside here, no pun intended. And now I'm going to take my decal and I'm going to just slide it off of here onto the plane. Now sometimes once you get it on there, you're going to need, well, not just sometimes, most of the time, you're going to need to move it. Okay, it's not going to go on perfectly as soon as you set it on there. I tend to just move them with my fingers. Probably the best thing I could do would be to buy a pin vise and move them with a a pin in a pin vise. I don't do that. I probably should. Sometimes I'll use a toothpick to kind of poke it and move it around. Also, if you find that it just won't move on you, it adheres to the model so quickly and so well, you can just dip your paintbrush in your water and re-wet the decal, and that will usually get it to where you can move it again. But I've gotten it in place where I want it here. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go back over it with the micro set. Okay, so I've got the micro set again. I'm going to go back over it, work it in here, the whole thing, okay? And make sure you get all the way around the edges too. Just going to go over that like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that sit for probably about two minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. When I have allowed that time to elapse or expire, I'm going to apply some micro sol. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and grab my scissors here and cut out the exact same decal that's going to go on the opposite wing. Obviously, when you're cutting out decals, be careful. Sometimes decals are really small and almost invisible, and you don't want to accidentally cut through one of your decals that you're going to use. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that one out and set it aside. A couple things while we're waiting on that I want to show you. The more that I've looked at this chipping along the wings, the more unhappy I am with it. I'm very pleased with the chipping along the flaps, okay, and some of the other chipping that I put on there, but this wing chipping, which was designed, if you remember, to be kind of what would happen as the pilot, as the mechanics scuffle over this area a lot, it just didn't turn out like I like it. You know, I'm not happy with it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and apply the decals, and I'm going to put another clear coat over this, and then I'm going to mess with it some more. And I've been looking at a lot of pictures of planes with bad chipping in that area, and I've realized what I'm going to do to make it right. So that'll be on a later video. I think you'll enjoy it. One other thing that I want to mention, and it's almost been the 2 minutes, is that when you work models and you have trouble getting your decals to stay down, if you haven't been using these solutions, begin using the solutions. But the other thing that you need to do is make sure you're putting a clear coat down before you put on your decals. Your decals, especially if you're working military aircraft or military vehicles, they don't like to go so much on a matte surface. So put a good gloss coat over the entire model before you start putting your decals down. That Johnson's floor wax that I've shown you in previous videos, this whole thing, this whole model, the last thing I did before doing these decals was that I sprayed the whole thing in Johnson's floor wax. Okay, it's time for the microsol. Anyway, back to that floor wax. Your decals are going to stick better to the model. They're going to go down better if the model has been covered in a gloss coat, okay? Like the Johnson's floor wax. Okay, so now, microsol. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to, you know what? I skipped a step. I'm sorry. There's one thing I want to do before I do that. I'm going to take my Q-tip, and I'm going to go kind of from the middle out with this. And you want to roll it. Don't scoot it. At this point, the decal stuck down pretty good. Sorry, I felt like I was busting something on the bottom of the aircraft, so I just flipped it over to make sure I wasn't. I don't know what I was feeling. Anyway, the decal at this point is probably stuck pretty good. You're probably not going to move it, but don't scoot the Q-tip. Because you could damage the decal or you could move the decal. Not very likely, but it could happen. You don't want to do that. So just start in the middle and roll this out in every direction. And what you're doing there is you're working out any air bubbles that might be in there, okay? And you're getting that decal to lay really nice and flat, okay? All right, now, after that, what we're going to do is we're going to come right in with the micro sol, all right? And what the micro sol is going to do is the micro sol is going to cause the decal to become extremely soft, extremely flimsy, if you will. And what's going to happen because of that is that the decal is going to work its way down into the crevices, the recessed panel lines, the rivet, the little indentions that are made into the plastic that are the rivets, that simulate the look of the rivets. Whatever might be under that decal that you want to show through as far as surface plastic work that was molded into the plane when it was manufactured, that decal is going to sink down into that. Now, why would we want that? What's the point? Well, it's true that there were times in U.S. military where they actually put decals on planes. Largely, a lot of these decals, though, on models were paint on real planes. And paint is obviously going to go down into the recessed panel lines. You're going to see the rivets through the paint. You're going to see the recessed panel lines through the paint. It's not going to look like a big sticker that's been stuck over the panel lines, though they did do that from time to time. So what you want is you want that to sink down into all those little divots and recessed panel lines so that it looks more like it's painted on and not a decal, which of course is what it is a decal. Now if you look at this, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it. I'm going to turn it in different directions to so that hopefully you can see it. It's starting to wrinkle, okay, a little bit. It's starting to wrinkle up a little bit. And you really want to be careful at this point not to touch it. Because even though it may have been adhering to the model quite well after you put on the micro set, now that you've applied micro sol, if you touch it, brush up against it, scoot it, it will move and it might even rip. So you got to be careful with it now. Okay, so what you want to do is you just kind of want to let that stay on there until it kind of looks dry on the surface. And then what I do is I add another coat of microsol. I go over it again and then I let it dry again. And really how many times I do that, how many times I put on microsol, just kind of depends on how it looks. If I think that it looks like it's really sunk down into all the recessed panel lines like I want it to, then I'm good. I'm done. I can stop applying microsol. Once I have applied the final coat of microsol and it has gotten to the point where it looks dry, I will come in again with a Q-tip and go back over it very, very, very gently, very easily. You don't want to damage the decal. But I'll come back in very easily after it's had the last coat of microsol, a little while after it's had the last coat of microsol, and I'll rub it over that, especially in the directions of those recessed panel lines, to make sure that decal has gone all the way down into those panel lines and to make sure that I can see all the surface detail that was molded into the plastic at the time that the plane was manufactured, okay? That I can see that coming up through the decal. Then, depending on the plane and depending on the scale of the plane and how deep the panel lines are and whatnot, you can come along with your blade and just kind of lay it in the panel line, the recessed panel line. So for example, I'm not going to do it to this decal as this decal's not ready to have it done to it yet. But there is a recessed panel line right here that goes across here. It goes all the way across the decal. So what I might do, I might not. It just depends on whether or not I feel like it's going to give me the look I want with this particular decal. But if I determine that I think it is going to give me the look that I want, I will lay this blade in the panel line and without really applying any pressure, after I've applied the microsol 2 or 3 times and it's dried decently, I'll just run that blade across that panel line. And that will slice the decal in half on that panel line. Then, once you've done that, come in with another coat of microsol so that it'll soften again and get even more down into those panel lines, okay? So that's how the decaling process works if you're not doing it that way. Mainly, if you're not putting your decals on a gloss coat, start gloss coating your vehicle before you put the decals on. If you're not using decaling solutions, believe me, you should start. You will be so much happier with the outcome of your decals because you do that than what you're getting now. And then when you're all done, you might want to just take kind of like a lint-free cloth and wipe over the area to kind of wipe away some of the chemicals that are left on the plane from the decaling solutions. So if you're not doing your decals that way, I urge you to go out, buy the materials to do them that way, try it, and believe me, you will be happy you did. Thanks for watching, everybody. The next time you see this plane, I think it'll have all the decals on it, another gloss coat over it, and we'll probably look a little more at chipping, okay? Thanks, everybody, for watching. Have a great day.